Dear viewer, tonight my interview with Irina Tsukerman. Arlene, welcome to MEA TV and radio.
Thank you so much for hosting me.
Let's talk about Morocco and US.
Well, these two issues are closely related because Morocco and US have also had a very close relationship. Morocco has been the first country to recognize the United States.
Yes.
And since that time, that relationship has been uninterrupted, ongoing, with high-level meetings on all sides. There is a vibrant Moroccan diaspora in the United States. But Morocco has also been a French-oriented country.
True.
So on a people-to-people level, the relationship has not been bad. It just has been not particularly focused. I would phrase it that way, simply because of cultural differences and lack of knowledge about Morocco on the U.S. end. And Morocco was more oriented towards Europe, Middle East, African states, not too much in terms of not as much in terms of business and other relations to the U.S.
Yes.
However, now there is a huge opportunity. There's a huge opening for rapid growth in these relations, which have been consistently great, particularly on defense and security level. But now it's time to move past diplomacy, past symbolic visit and training exercises, and towards more integrated approach towards all other forms of relationship, introducing Moroccan culture to the American public, and also introducing the possibility of joint ventures, businesses, cooperations on energy issues that are important to both countries, and scientific research. Moroccan American has been very much in charge of the vaccine development in the United States. So for COVID, so there is a lot of opportunities.
Absolutely.
The issue has been these relationships have been underplayed in the media. There's also been a profound ignorance and lack of academic expertise on North Africa in general, and Morocco specifically. There's been a few key experts in several universities, but overall, this has not been an issue that has been either funded or directly related to the way the universities approach it. Think tanks in the U.S. as well, they mostly tie in Morocco to other North African issues and general security situation in North Africa, but not necessarily dedicate a lot of time to to exploring bilateral security or foreign policy implications for Morocco and the United States. So there simply has not been enough push for that interest, and only in recent years, under the Trump administration, have we seen an increase on issues other than the traditional exercise, with many visits by members of the administration to Morocco, by visits of the Moroccan government to the United States, discussions of issues related to women's empowerment, to energy issues, business possibilities, and now the U.S. took a very decisive step. It took a significant part in brokering.
Irina, I was in Morocco and I did interview with many people there, and they are very open to a better relation with the U.S. And matter of fact, they asked me if I could put an American school there to teach the English language. And honestly, Morocco have a lot of opportunity that it'll be a joint effort between U.S. and Morocco, if it's in business, if it's in educational, if it's in social issue. So I think we're gonna enhance that Morocco. Let's talk about the relation now between Morocco and Israel. We know Morocco is the home for millions of Moroccan Jews. And always Morocco have a good relation with Israel. But now it's to a different level. Now tell me more about what happened between Israel and Morocco.
So the relationship between the two countries has been not only stable but very fruitful for decades.
Yes.
There's been a high-level defense cooperation. There's been a cultural recognition of the fact that the two countries have common roots. The Moroccan Jewry in Israel, a lot of them have fond memories of their time, of their childhood and youth spent in Morocco. They have carried on a lot of the cultural traditions to younger generations, and many of them have actually retained Moroccan citizenship as well.
Yes.
And consider themselves Moroccans. Many of the Moroccan Jewish population in Israel travel to Morocco
for tourism,
holidays, and
yes,
for tourism and for holidays, for religious pilgrimages.
Yes.
And there's also been reciprocal visits by some Moroccans to Israel, especially in recent years. There's also some level of trade. There are Israeli dates that are used for Ramadan in Morocco, and that's why, as I said earlier, using the word normalization is a complete misnomer. Yes. And many people are claiming that there's been no diplomatic relations between the two countries for years. That's not exactly accurate. The trade office that everyone believes to have been shut down many years ago by Morocco has actually been maintained. Morocco continued to pay rent and continue to maintain a presence. Morocco cannot really normalize with its own people. A large portion of Israel are Moroccan.
Yes.
So an upgrade in relations, a restoration of relations is a more appropriate view of the situation. Especially recently, it has been there's been a lot of very vigorous discussion in the think tanks in Israel, newspapers and intellectual sphere, in the Jewish newspapers in the US as well. Mm-hmm. I've written about it myself. Anissa Logbani, who is a geopolitical expert with a focus on Morocco, has written on that extensively in the French press and also in the English language press, along with me. My business partner, Benjamin Minnick, who has actually brought up a lot of these issues related to Morocco and its important security role for Israel.
Yes. Arlene, how that gonna affect the normalization of the relation between Israel and Morocco? How is gonna affect Morocco's neighbors like Algeria and Tunisia and Mauritania? Is that gonna encourage those countries to do the same thing?
Well, in terms of Mauritania specifically, there have been discussions of potential normalization with Israel. I'm not going to say that there aren't obstacles to overcome. Morocco and Mauritania are very different countries. With Israel, there's vibrant cooperation. In Morocco, there are studies of Jewish law. The king has now instituted the study of Judeo-Moroccan history in schools. The association Muna, which is a Morocco-based students association dedicated to understanding Jewish history and culture, and the US-American Federation were promoting this issue that the king has instituted heavily. In Mauritania, I believe the knowledge of Jewish history is limited. The people-to-people tie.
How about Algeria and Tunisia? How about Algeria and Tunisia?
The situation there is much more difficult. Algeria has shown no signs of interest at all, and in fact has recently punished people who have been trying to engage with Israel. On the other hand, there's been some efforts by individual Algerians to engage with the Israelis, but the Algerian government has been very hands-off. It has been a very touchy issue. Jews have been expelled from Algeria, and people like Enrico Marquez, who are internationally known stars, have not been able to return home. So I believe there are profound differences standing in the way, and until Algeria changes its treatment of the Jewish population and shows an openness, I don't really see much progress in the very near future. I'm not saying it's impossible.
Okay, Arlene, another issue we have, الصحراء المغربية. Polisario has been given a lot of problem. They don't come to negotiation, and U.S. Recognize Moroccan authority on the Sahara al-Maghribiya. Tell me more about it.
The U.S. merely officially stated what is already a fact, that Sahara has always been Moroccan territory.
Yes.
People who have claimed otherwise have either been profoundly ignorant of the history of that region, or they have sided with particular European and Algerian interests. And there's been a humongous Algerian lobbying push in the United States, disconnected from any reality. It has essentially created a false perception of who the Polisario is and what are the interests of the people in the region. The Sahrawis are, they live in Morocco, they have Moroccan citizenship, and even those individuals detained who live in Siduf camps in Algeria have been offered Moroccan citizenship in the event of their desire to return. So there is no real contest over the territory. Polisario are a very specific group. They have radical leftist roots.
Absolutely.
They were initially used as an anti-colonial force against Spain's occupation of the territory. So Spain clearly had an early interest in colonizing certain territories in the area and has vacated since then most of the area. Later on, the Soviet Union and Algeria, which was pro-Soviet, have adopted Polisario, as they have adopted particularly left-wing forces around the world as their tool against pro-Western, pro-American Morocco in the area. And Polisario reoriented itself from this force of liberation against Spain's colonialism to this corrupt group of individuals, many of whom at this point, by the way, don't even reside with their own supposed people. They live in Europe and they live a grand lifestyle while their people are suffering in camps and these enclaves.
Yes.
And,
Another question.
And they become a terrorist group,
yes,
by the way.
They are, and whoever works against his own people shouldn't be recognized. Another question. Yeah, another question is how the Moroccan American play a role between to better relation between U.S. and Morocco. Are they, for example, I know that Anis Kobani, he's doing his job to build a relation, more relation, economically, socially, between U.S. and Morocco. Is the Morocco American community are working toward this goal?
I would say more than anyone can imagine. I've personally, along with my partner, Sima Alasawi, we've helped organize an association of a Moroccan American community in New York. We've hosted many dinners, particularly between Jewish Americans and Moroccans of all faiths and backgrounds to facilitate understanding. They're also active in promoting potential relations between the U.S. and different between the U.S. and Morocco. We've had many discussions. There's been many efforts, and there's a great deal of enthusiasm and investment into this issue on behalf of the community. So I would say that thanks to people like Simo and Anis, these efforts are becoming streamlined. They're becoming organized, and there's a great deal of knowledge that there are opportunities and there's a lot more that can be done politically, socially, economically, on a humanitarian, educational level, on all levels, absolutely.
And we doing our job right here at MEA TV. We put on TV a lot of things about Morocco. We put the breaking ground of the consular in Casablanca, which is attended by our ambassador for the Morocco. So we're doing a lot of a lot of things that will help the American and the Middle Eastern American community understand about Morocco and know about Morocco?
I think that's wonderful. I think the next step actually would be to increase engagement between Morocco-oriented media and local American media too, because there is a profound ignorance of this issue. There is a profound ignorance of what's going on. I think most people in the U.S. are not aware of security issues like Polisario. The fact that it's lately not only been backed by Algeria, but by Iran, which is a primary security threat to U.S. interests at the moment.
Well, Iran sponsored all the terrorist activities and terrorist group all over the world, and especially in the Middle East and North Africa.
Absolutely. I mean, I myself have personally been in Dakhla, where the U.S. consulate is supposed to be built, and I've interviewed survivors of Polisario prisons, and they've told me personally of their eyewitness testimony of Hezbollah presence in Tindouf camps, and of Hezbollah facilitation of tunnel building that was aimed at Morocco, very similar to what Hamas and Hezbollah have done elsewhere. Of the use of Iran of the Algiers embassy for illicit ammunition, illicit weapons and arms dealings through Hezbollah to Polisario and training Polisario to attack Moroccan civilians.
Yes.
This is a very real threat. It's similar to what's going on in the Middle East, in Yemen, in Lebanon, in Iraq, in Syria, and all these groups are becoming forces for Iran to try to expand its presence in North Africa, to destabilize Morocco, and to try to get a foothold to build naval bases all over the continent, which would put Europe and the Middle East at risk as much as Morocco and surrounding African countries. So this is something important to convey to the public, which does not understand these implications.
Yes.
Thanks to pro-Polisario Algerian lobbies, I'm sorry to say, and a lack of information push by Moroccan lobbies, unfortunately, in recent years. That information has not been getting through, and only recently has started to gain traction with the U.S. government at first. But there's a lot more work to be done.
Well, Arlene, we are willing and we want to get more information to the Middle Eastern American community and to the community at large about Morocco and enhance the relationship between the Morocco-American and the community at large, and between U.S. and Morocco. Thanks for giving us the opportunity. Sure. Thank you for giving us the opportunity. And please keep in touch. And if you have any more information, you are more welcome to contact us, and we present it to the community.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Sure. Thank you. Bye.